Good evening, and here is the news on NTA International. I am Vivian Izadifi. Let's begin with the headlines. National Assembly wants the Presidential Gas Initiative to do more on adaptability tests on the compressed natural gas. National Information Technology Development Agency collaborates to develop financial monitoring platform to remove Nigeria from grey lists. World Health Organization launches $1.5 billion health emergency appeal to address global health crisis. Many thanks for being part of the news. World Health Organization, WHO, has outlined critical priorities and resources needed to address 42 ongoing health emergencies, including 17 grade 3 crises. This, the WHO Director General, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, noted are the most severe emergencies requiring the highest level of response. The global health body is of the opinion that with health systems stretched to their limits and global financial resources dwindling, about $1.5 billion is needed to help people facing the most difficult situations globally. He noted that conflicts, outbreaks, climate-related disasters, and other health emergencies are no longer isolated as they are relentless, overlapping, and intensifying.
In 2025, we estimate that more than 300 million people around the world will require urgent humanitarian assistance. Amid this escalating need, we're confronted with another challenge, a widening gap in humanitarian funding. In 2024, global health sector funding met barely 40% of needs. Without adequate and sustainable funding, we face the impossible task of deciding who will receive care and who will not.
Rapid mobilization of resources and also strategic guidance in our response. Allow me to highlight some of the specific ways that WHO supported our response. The technical expertise and the research capacity was very instrumental, as we saw the support from WHO in deploying 20 technical experts from regional and also headquarters levels.
The WHO boss observed that controlling cholera outbreaks to providing mental health support in conflict zones. WHO's work extends beyond the immediate care to empowering communities to protect themselves, prioritize equity, and build a legacy of preparedness. This appeal, he noted, will enable WHO to save lives, protect the right to health, and provide hope where there is none, said Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, WHO Director General. Supporters of Donald Trump, who traveled to the U.S. Capitol to attend Monday's inauguration, have shared their disappointment after the announcement that the event will move indoors due to expected freezing weather. The change of plan means Trump will not stand on the Capitol steps overlooking the National Mall, which traditionally hosts a large crowd to welcome new president. Instead, the Republican president will give his inauguration address in the Capitol Rotunda. Donald Trump confirmed that his inauguration as U.S. president on Monday will move indoors due to expected freezing weather, undercutting the Republicans' hopes for a grandiose spectacle to kick off his second term. Representatives of Latin American countries have met in Mexico and agreed to work together on a single front on the migration issue of human mobility on the northern route of the continent. The meeting took place in a context marked by the arrival at the White House of January 20 of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, who threatens to carry out mass deportations despite the proven contribution of migrant communities to that nation. Francis Odojo has more.
The meeting, convened in a hybrid format, was attended by ministers and heads of delegation from Belize, Brazil, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Guatemala, Haiti, Venezuela, Mexico, and Honduras, which holds the pro tempore presidency of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. At the meeting, Mexican Foreign Secretary Juan Ramon de la Fuente stated that given the changes that are coming to one of the main destination countries for migration in the hemisphere, the nations of the region must be prepared to face the new challenges. They must also do so jointly, adhering to international law for the benefit of the countries. The Secretary added in a statement from the Secretariat of Foreign Affairs. Participants at the meeting, which began on Thursday, acknowledged Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum's leadership and her efforts to continue to manage the migration phenomenon more effectively. Reports say under human rights perspective, the group are consolidating a regional model that can address the different phases and dimensions of the phenomenon, a model that is in a process of collective and dynamic construction that is perfectible and flexible. Francis Udojo, NTA News.
Israel cabinet has approved a deal with Palestinian militant group Hamas for a ceasefire and release of hostages, with the first hostage prisoner exchange in the Gaza Strip set for Sunday. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said on Saturday, a day before the agreement's schedule starts. Francis Udojo again has details.
After meeting for more than 6 hours, the Israeli government ratified the agreement that could pave way for an end to the 15-month-old war in the Palestinian enclave which Hamas controls. The Israeli Security Cabinet recommended approving the Gaza ceasefire deal during a meeting in Jerusalem on Friday. The meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and others was delayed from Thursday after Israel accused Hamas of reneging on the deal and demanding last-minute concessions, which the group strongly denied. The agreement covers 3 phases, with the first, lasting 42 days, expected to see the release of up to 33 hostages, women, children, and older people, and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. It will also see 600 lorries of humanitarian aid enter Gaza each day, as well as fuel and other civil defense equipment. Phases 2 and 3 are set to be finalized during the initial ceasefire stage, including the remaining hostages and bodies released, Israeli withdrawal, and the reconstruction of Gaza. The Israel-Hamas war began with the initial militant assault on southern Israel in October 2023, killing 1,139 people, mostly civilians, according to the Israeli side. The Palestinian side has reported over 46,000 deaths in the ensuing conflict in Gaza. Meanwhile, the UN Human Rights Office's chief spokesperson, Ravina Shamsadani, has warned of escalating risk to civilians in Sudan due to targeted ethnic violence in Al Jazeera, which threatens the ongoing conflict in Khartoum. Ravina noted that the situation for civilians in Sudan is becoming increasingly perilous following reports of numerous brutal killings in ethnically motivated attacks in the southeastern state of Al Jazeera, alongside indications of an impending struggle for control of Khartoum. Speaking in Geneva, she urged an immediate cessation of violence, addressing both the president of the Transitional Sovereign Council and the commander of the Rapid Support Forces. Ravina pointed out that the ongoing power struggle, which has persisted for nearly 2 years, is fueled by both the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces. It could be recalled that on January 13, drone strikes on the city of Omdurman reportedly resulted in the death of around 120 civilians, with over 150 others injured. Francis Udojo, NTA News.
Keen to improve Indians' abysmal crowd management record at large-scale religious events, Organizers of the world's largest gathering of humans are using artificial intelligence to try to prevent stampedes. Organizers predict up to 400 million pilgrims will visit the Kumbh Mela, a millennia-old sacred show of Hindu piety and ritual bathing that began on Monday and runs for 6 weeks. It could be recalled that more than 400 people died after being trampled or drowned at the Kumbh Mela on a single day of the festival in 1954, one of the largest tolls in a crowd-related disaster globally. We go to Zambia, where the Mainasoko Medical Center has successfully conducted an awake craniotomy on a 28-year-old patient. The awake craniotomy is a brain surgery which involves removal of a piece of the skull to access the brain.
It is the first of its kind to ever be conducted in Zambia. Doctors at Mainasoko Medical Center successfully conducted the first awake craniotomy on 28-year-old Simon Ziwa. The 3 hours 54 minutes procedure was performed by a skilled team of neurosurgeons and other medical staff. The patient, Ziwa, remained awake and responsive throughout the brain surgery to remove a tumor as he engaged in different tasks as directed by the medical team. Craniotomy is a type of brain surgery where the neurosurgeon opens and removes a piece of the skull to access the brain. The team was led by neurosurgeon Lieutenant General Dr. Keith Simfukwe.
In brain surgery, the more you resect, the better. But it has to be done safely. Safely so that you preserve function. So it's a thin line where you're resecting and preserving function. That's the ultimate reason why we conduct an awake craniotomy.
Meanwhile, Ziwa shared his experience throughout the operation.
The doctors were kind enough to make me feel comfortable. The seizures mainly and weakness on my left side, this side. Yes, but everything else I can do on the left. It's quite an experience because even other people were able now to not say people can be able to be worked on without any difficulty.
Ziwa's family is grateful to the medical experts for conducting the operation successfully.
But with the cancer that we underwent, we had several meetings with Dr. Simfukwe and the other hospital staff. It actually calmed us down.
The counseling which was done on him, the patient himself was very positive. He could refuse even being put on the wheelchair. He said, I'm not a patient. I'm just here for this condition. When it's done, I'll be out of this place.
Mainasoko Medical Center Commandant, Brigadier General Levi Muchemwa, said the achievement is a testament to the expertise of medical professionals at the health institution.
Because we want to provide a service to our patients, those services for which the patient would normally go out of the country for brain surgery.
The patient is expected to be discharged on Friday, January 17th, 2025.
The police in South Sudan have imposed a nationwide nighttime curfew from Friday following a deadly riot in the capital, Juba. 3 people were killed and 7 others were wounded in protests when youth attacked shops owned by Sudanese. Security forces said they had fired warning shots to stop the pillaging of the shops as the unrest spread to Juba, as well as towns in other parts of the country. The riot followed reports of the alleged killing of 29 South Sudanese citizens earlier in the week in neighboring Sudan by the army and allied groups. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has called for calm and urged people not to allow their anger to turn them against Sudanese traders and refugees. Police officials said the daily curfew from 6 in the evening to 6 in the morning will continue until further notice in a bid to restore security and prevent the destruction of property. South Sudan hosts several hundreds of thousands Sudanese refugees who have fled the ongoing civil war in their country. The Voice of Nigeria has expressed its readiness to partner with School of Journalism and Communication, Shanghai University, China, in shaping and projecting positive and factual narratives about Nigeria and China to the global community. This came to the fore when the Director General of VON, Jibrin Baba Ndache, played host to a delegation from the Chinese institution at VON's headquarters in Abuja. Chukunon Sonwabeze reports.
Very special. What a privilege.
The visit the DG VON, Jibrin Baba Ndache, said will further strengthen the already existing cordial relationship between Nigeria and China. He emphasized that the partnership between VON and Tsinghua University will help in projecting positive narratives about the two countries through joint content production as well as in terms of exchange programs.
The way Nigeria is reported to the Chinese audience is by a third-party media.
Exactly.
And the way China is reported to Nigeria and Africa is by a third-party media. And that is why a visit like this is to close that gap, to ensure that we understand and create content and tell our story from our own perspective.
Director of Research and Practice Base for Global South Communication at the Tsinghua University, China, Professor Zhao Hujie, who led some PhD students of the institution on the visit, expressed delight at the possibility of working with VON to deepen people-to-people relationship between Nigerians and their Chinese counterparts.
Our understanding of each other, like what you were saying, so I can't agree more with that. I also can't agree more about the need to fight fake news and also the need to bring young talent to learn from each other.
Since his assumption as DG of VON, Ndache has been working with the Chinese embassy in Nigeria to begin broadcast in Chinese official language, Mandarin, as one of the agency's foreign broadcast languages, an initiative that was greatly commended by the delegation. Chukunon Sonwabeze, NTA News.
This is the news on NTA International. More stories after the break. Stay with us.
I am Oluremi Tinubu, the global and national Stop TB champion. Many people have asked why I've chosen to champion the fight against a disease like tuberculosis. My reason stems from a deep personal experience. I once had a friend who unfortunately fell ill and concealed the nature of his sickness until it was too late. Eventually, after he passed, we discovered he had tuberculosis. Sadly, due to the stigma and discrimination surrounding the disease, he would not speak up or seek for help. His death was a painful reminder that we could have intervened and saved a life if only we had known earlier. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease that primarily affects the lungs, but can also impact other parts of the body. Being airborne means anyone, regardless of their social economic status, can contract it. In Nigeria, 1 person dies of TB-related illness every 7 minutes, amounting to 206 deaths every day. Globally, 1 person succumbs to TB every 25 seconds, which is a staggering 3,456 lives lost daily. These deaths are entirely preventable because TB is curable if detected and treated early. If you or someone you know has been coughing for 2 weeks or more, coughing up blood, experiencing night sweats, or losing weight drastically, it might be TB. Please visit the nearest government hospital or primary healthcare center for proper diagnosis and treatment. TB treatment is free in all government and some private health facilities. Let us also remember not to stigmatize or discriminate against TB patients or those who have been treated for TB. Individuals who have been cured of TB cannot infect others. I call on all stakeholders, especially the private sector, to join us in the fight to end TB in Nigeria. Together, we can make a difference. Remember, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. End TB by 2030. Yes, we can.
Welcome back. The National Assembly wants the Presidential Gas Initiative to do more on adaptability tests on the CNG, having been embraced as an alternative in road transport, just as Works Minister urges improved funding for road infrastructure to enhance economic activities across Nigeria. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports on budget defense engagement of Ministers of Petroleum Resources, Works, Health and others with relevant committees on their 2025 proposals.
The budget defense session between the Joint Committee on Petroleum Resources and the two state ministers was an opportunity to discuss further on the CNG drive, aside the 903 million naira capital allotted the ministry, which both sides described as meager.
Of capital, 903,648,261 naira, zero kobo.
What has been given to this ministry, I don't think the mandate of the ministry can be carried out. And we are oversighting.
What is happening to the midstream and downstream gas infrastructure fund, which have been fixed in various banks.
Mr. President has a vision to ensure that the CNG program, gets to the grassroots.
Works Minister David Umahi, while defending the 2025 budget, laid bare the challenges of the ministry to deliver on its mandate of providing road network to link all parts of Nigeria.
The president, who is an economist, who has gone through all the segments of what we're passing through by reason of his experiences, and is making efforts to borrow money to do these projects public. And that's what I'm telling the National Assembly, and we are on the same page with National Assembly. We have to borrow money to fix the roads. The roads, when fixed, is a catalyst to
continue as we continue from this our end to think of how we can engage with other revenue profile agencies to get money to see how projects will be delivered to our people.
The 2025 vision for the Ministry of Health, as highlighted by the Minister, Professor Ali Pate, is to collaborate with the private sector to improve local drug manufacturing, but this, to his eyes, requires huge investments by governments.
We know that as Nigeria's growth continues, as revenue improves, and as the tax reforms kick in and revenues improve, both the federal government and states will have more fiscal space to invest more in health, to provide the relief, the affordability to Nigerians, but also on the supply side.
On its part, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs informed the lawmakers that lifting more Nigerians above the poverty line is among priority areas in the 2025 fiscal plan of the ministry. Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, the Federal Road Safety Corps and others appeared before the Senate Committee on Federal Character with appeals for a review of the envelope budget system.
To your 2025 presentation.
Drivers doesn't obey the traffic lights. It's only in this country. So virtually we have not done even much. In fact, the fines are going to be increased this year.
Sir, can you please briefly explain to me what the ecological fund covers and the expediency of that fund?
The fund covers erosion
projects, degradation, environmental degradation, and then, of course, yes, national emergencies.
An Inception workshop and stakeholders consultations for the Global Environment Facilities Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency Project have been held in Nigeria. The workshop, at the instance of the Food and Agriculture Organization in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Environment, is aimed at strengthening the capacity of institutions in Nigeria on its greenhouse gas reporting and implement the transparency requirement of the Paris Agreement. Charles Alpha reports.
The transparency provisions of Article 13 of the Paris Agreement on climate change requires developing countries to regularly monitor, analyze, and report their national greenhouse gas emissions and removals, provide information necessary to track progress towards achieving their nationally determined contributions, as well as provide information relating to climate change adaptation, mitigation, finance, and technology. The Food and Agriculture Organization said this capacity building under the Global Environment Facilities Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency Project in Nigeria is part of efforts to increase Nigeria's response to the Paris Agreement, with key actors from ministries, departments and agencies, civil society representatives, as well as the media, trained on data collection, processing and reporting.
FAO recognizes the need for technical support in the area of capacity building for Nigerian institutions so that Nigeria can move towards a more self-reliant arrangement for greenhouse gas emission data compilation, reporting, verification and tracking of NDC.
Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Environment, in a message to the Inception workshop, said Nigeria has shown efforts to raise climate ambition by developing policies and programs that address these problems. That is why forging catalytic partnership and mobilizing finance to deliver on its net zero commitment by 2060 cannot be overstated.
Nigeria, as a signatory to the Paris Agreement, is launching this project today. This GEM-funded project seeks to support Nigeria in meeting the enhanced transparency requirement defined in Article 13.
The exercise also facilitated discussions on timelines, expected outcomes, and coordination mechanism among stakeholders, while facilitating dialogue on baseline data collection, interagency collaboration, as well as technical consideration. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
And that report brings us to the end of the news on NTA International. Thanks for watching. I'm Vivian Izadifi.